What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Meko, once again joined by my guy Morgan here. And Morgan, for once, we're actually not going to do a film study. We're actually just going to talk some football. And we've already spent this week, recapping the Rams offense, recapping the Rams defense, kind of talking about the challenges they pose to the Lions and vice versa, as well as like how we think the Lions can take advantage of the Rams come this Sunday night. But there's one thing that I really want to touch on when it comes to this matchup, and that's X factors. I would love for us to sit here and kind of have a back and forth and just talk about some of the biggest X factors that the Lions need if they are expecting to, pull out a win against LA this Sunday night. So we're definitely going to talk about that. Also, guys, if you are, watching this video, if you haven't checked out our film study videos, definitely go on the channel and check those out. A lot of really good information about what the Rams do well, what players really stand out. But this one is actually going to be more Lions focused, and we're going to talk about the guys that really need to stand out. So, Morgan, for you, if we're looking at the offensive side of the football, who's the X factor for you that you really think needs to stand out for the Lions this Sunday night?
Going to start right at the center with Frank Ragnow, the soon-to-be. I think I'm pretty sure, 99% sure, this is going to be his second All-Pro. It should be at least first-team All-Pro. Yeah, he's the best in the business. Simple as that. From everything, from pass protection, bullying people in the interior and making room for Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. He's really, really smart in terms of his checks and his, with getting the pass pro in a good situation against the rush. So, yeah, he's a big part of the engine that is the Lions offense, right, Meko?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, when it comes down to this offense, when you look at when they've had the most success, it's typically when Frank's been a part of that lineup. And when they've struggled a little bit, whether it's running the ball or even in pass protection, it's typically when Frank has been out of the lineup or when his snaps are somewhat limited because he's had to go out just from, missing a couple snaps here and there. He's really proven to be that vital piece for this Lions offense. And like you said, one of the best in the business. When you start looking at, again, I know not everybody likes to put a ton of stock in PFF, but I do think it's a good measuring stick in just determining like the importance and the quality of a player's play. Frank is right there near the top three in offensive linemen, period. Not just centers. He's the number one center, but top three offensive linemen is really impressive for a guy that went into the season with a known toe injury. Like, it's something that he knew he was going to have to deal with all season.
Yeah, for sure, Miko. And that's what he deals with. Like, if you look at the injury report for the Lions, it'll say like knee, back, toe, I believe. Knee, back, toe, and then rest.
Yeah.
Are his little four, I believe, designations. So, and he's been dealing with them all season. They give him the veteran rest. And he's a warrior, man. I really love Frank Ragnow and his commitment to this team. Been with the Lions since they drafted him in the first round in 2018, I believe at the 20th pick. And he's been a cornerstone, and he sets the tone, right? Like Penei Sewell is definitely the leader in terms of the team. He's the one breaking them down, and I know Decker, commands a lot of respect too, but Frank is, like I said, he makes them tick. And yeah, to your point, Miko, first among all centers according to PFF, and then you just watch the tape too, and he stands out 24/7, like pancaking dudes, just being really heady in terms of when teams run games and like stunts in terms of pass pro. And then, yeah, like some of the Lions' worst performances can really be directly tied to Frank either, maybe playing a little extra dinged up or just not playing at all. I know in my mind, it comes to that week 14 game, like we talked about against the Bears. And the Bears jumped the Lions, man. And a big reason for that was just a lot of pressure at Goff, and then turnovers were happening. And and it kind of unraveled pretty quickly. And before you know it, you're down a couple scores. So yeah, he's going to be a big factor. Like you said, Miko, it's, the Rams are good on the interior. Aaron Donald's, Hall of Famer, first ballot. Kobe Turner's one of my favorite young rookies in the league right now outside of Detroit. So he's going to have his hands full. But again, he's an All-Pro. I feel pretty good about Frank.
And Frank's been pretty battle tested too, right? This offseason, or this entire season, he's gone against Grady Jarrett. He's gone against Madubuike in Baltimore, Kenny Clark in Green Bay. And some of the defensive linemen, over in Dallas, like he's had to go against some really stout defensive tackles or just defensive linemen in general, and he's held his own for the most part. And I go back to what you're saying. He really is this jack of all trades where again, he can double team, he can take on single blocks really well. And I know that's something that Rams fans look at and again, like you say, Aaron Donald, gold jacket, like is just waiting for him as soon as he, decides to walk away from the game. But Frank is someone that I think a lot of Lions fans should feel confident in. If the Lions decide like, hey, we're gonna go one-on-one, Frank and AD, it's not a matchup where you look at them like, I don't know if Frank can hang. Like he's done it before, and it's something that I think, makes everybody else's job on that defense, on that offensive line, a little bit simpler because Frank is going to anchor down the middle, whether that's against Aaron Donald or the young rookie who's having a phenomenal season in Kobe Turner.
Yeah, absolutely, Miko. And then you look at it like, for those who don't know, like Frank is a superior athlete at center, man. Like the Lions have a couple freakazoid athletes on their offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is Penei Sewell, and he's 23 years old. And he's either the best tackle in football or the second. You could argue third, but I probably wouldn't hear you much. And then you have Frank Ragnow. And Frank Ragnow, man, he's that dude. Like the Lions pull him a lot, along with Jonah Jackson, Miko, and like they get him out in space, and the dude can move for being 6'5", 305, or whatever he walks around at. So yeah, he can do it all. Like you said, Miko, jack of all trades. Like the reason he was so coveted coming out of Arkansas is because of this. He's a premium athlete at that position.
Yeah, and I think again that says a lot. Like I said, PFF ranking him really highly. He's only allowed 1 sack this entire season, and again, when we start going by names, right? Jason Kelce feels like the gold standard for centers this day and age. When it comes down to centers, then you're probably talking about Creed Humphrey. Those are the names that people know, and not a lot of people know about Frank. But I think this Sunday night, biggest stage, him going up against one of the best defensive tackles to ever play the game, I think Frank really has an opportunity to not just help this Lions team get a much needed win and advance in the playoffs, but also to put the entire league on notice on just how talented he is for those who don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, Miko, because if you're in the offensive line, trench warfare community at all, you know who Frank Ragnow is. But if you're like, I'm not going to say casual NFL fan, but like you're not paying attention to like centers, like I'm not going to blame you, right? Like to each their own. So, but yeah, like if the Lions make a little run here, Frank's going to become much more of a household name. He's a great dude in the community. He's up for Walter Payton Man of the Year. He's our nominee for that. Does a lot for just a lot of really good causes. So all around good human. So yeah, it'd be really nice, to your point, Miko, if people did, they're like, oh my God, this man is amazing. And then I see Ragnow jerseys. Like I bet you the Lions, like in Detroit, we probably have the most offensive line jerseys.
For sure.
Would you say? I think so too.
Oh yeah, like, between Frank, between Decker, between Penei.
Yeah.
Like it's a love fest for this O-line. Graham playing, obviously being a former, Michigan player, like there's a lot of people who love Graham here. Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Probably next to maybe like the Eagles, where like
for sure, Kelce and Johnson, and
yeah.
True.
So
Mailata too, man. Mailata's nice. Yeah, the Eagles are still good on the offensive line, even if they are in a free fall right now.
Facts. So yeah, I mean, looking at this game ahead, like I said, I think we're both in agreement. Frank Ragnow is absolutely that offensive X factor. If he's playing well, I think the rest of the offensive line plays well. And if the offensive line is playing well, we know automatically that's a domino effect for Jared Goff and this rushing attack. Again, it just is going to provide more problems for the Los Angeles Rams. And again, not saying that's an easy task, but Frank will make, I think, everything easier if he's playing well.
Yeah, 100%. And if the Rams, and that's the thing too, like the Rams currently don't have like an elite edge rusher on their roster. Like I like the rookie Byron
Young. Yeah.
Byron Young. I do like Byron Young. He's flashed on tape quite a few times, but I'm he's not Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett or Daniil Hunter or any of these the the elites. So, but they
Yeah.
do, like, to our point, we've talked about it a bunch here. They do have really good interior defensive line play, but if that's stifled and they're not really able to heat up Goff because the line is playing well, then that the Rams secondary is going to have a tough time stopping the Lions' full arsenal of weapons, because I'm not, Sam Laporta was smiling a lot in the locker room today, and that's all I'll say, because I'm not going to jinx anything. I'm not really stitious, but I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Yeah, for
Hey,
sure.
listen, I still think whether Sam plays or not, I do think this Lions offense has enough. And like we've been saying for most of this video so far, it starts with Frank Ragnow and it starts with this offensive line. If those guys are playing well, everything else for this Lions offense just starts to click.
Yep.
So with that said, with that putting that to the side for a little bit, let's move over to the defensive side of the football. And there's a lot of potential X factors that we could talk about on this defense. But for my money, Morgan, I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm putting too much on the young kid, but I think Brian Branch is very key to this defense playing at a high level. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, I'm there with you. And when we were going, back and forth over this earlier, you sent your original thoughts to me, and I sat there and thought about it as I was eating my sandwich, and I was like, you know what? I like both of those, because we just hammered home the Frank points, and then to Brian Branch, we highlighted the Rams offense, which is a high-powered, efficient offense. I would say they do, in my opinion, probably have 2 top 10 receivers on their roster right now. Top 10, top 15, depending on how you want to argue it. So yeah, Branch, Cooper Kupp operates a lot in the slot. They run that McVay style of offense where things are tight a lot of the time in terms of like how narrow the formation is. And then, they're operating in the bunch there. So yeah, there could be several instances when Branch is matched up with Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp, and he's going to lose some battles because that's how it goes in terms of, being a DB in the NFL. You're going to get got sometimes, but man, Branch has been one of the best nickels already in football, and he's a rookie. Man, we can't say enough. Like I've said it a million times, you don't start for Nick Saban at Alabama as a freshman unless you are a capital D dude. Okay, like that's it.
I mean, I'll take it a step further than that, Morgan, right? Obviously, we all know that it was a mistake for BB to get drafted in the second round.
Oh, for
Absolute,
sure. Thank you,
big
though.
mistake by the rest of the entire NFL. But it does say something when you go out and you sign a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and everybody is expecting like, oh, okay, CJ is going to man your nickel. You have Kirby coming off of a really good rookie season. He's going to play your safety. And Tracy Walker's coming back and was playing pretty well before he got hurt. Like, that's your safety. Brian Branch is probably just going to pick up some experience, play some special teams. And for Brian Branch, from the minute it was go in off-season workouts, he made it known that, like, no, this nickel spot is mine, and played so well that, like, the Lions coaching staff had to rearrange everything else in that secondary because it's like, yo, we can't sit this kid. And to your point, not only, much like Frank, not only is he playing really well as a rookie, he's playing really well at corner in general. Again, top 20 at his position, not just nickel, but corner. One of the best corners, period. And that says a lot for a guy to be a second round pick and still making his headway, but still doing a lot of really good things on the field. Getting 13 passes, defended, getting 3 picks, getting a forced fumble. He has a sack on the year. One of the better run defenders. Like, the list goes on and on when talking about Brian Branch.
He does it all, man. You can almost stick him down there in the box as like an off-ball linebacker, and he'll like come up and rock a guard, and you see the guard's neck snap back, and you're like, who hit him? And you're like, oh, that was just 6 foot, 200-pound Brian Branch. That doesn't really make sense, but it happens. I've watched every single rep of Brian Branch's on all 22 this year multiple times. So you see it happen time and time again. I'm not surprised at all. He's the highest rated rookie on run defense according to PFF, and again, the tape backs that up. Yeah, he's just that dude, man. He's sticky in coverage. He's really intelligent, because if y'all don't know, Nick Saban is a tremendous football coach, and I know he just retired, and you can hate him all you want, but he's amazing. And he got his start. He was a defensive backs coach. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
his baby. There's a reason the Alabama just churns out, first round DBs, like safeties, corners, you name it. So yeah, when the Lions nabbed Branch, I thought that was a steal. I was about to crap myself that whole day because I was like, man, he's going to land with the Packers and it's going to suck for like 10 years. So yeah, I'd love that you picked Brian Branch because he'd have been there for me too as I like went through the process. But honestly, it's cut and dry in my opinion. Like he's got to, if he plays well, then Lions will be well on their way.
Yeah, and also like again, so not to discredit anybody else on that defensive, on that defense for the Lions. I think Hutch is going to do what Hutch has done all season. There's no doubt about that in my mind. I think Aleem is going to pick up where he left off. I think the linebackers who have played really well are going to do what they've done in terms of run defense and then be there in terms of playing sideline to sideline. But again, talking specifically about X factors and people that are going to need to have bigger games to help, again, either limit or at least contain to some extent what the Rams are trying to do offensively. That's where Brian Branch comes in. And like it's like you said at the top of this, when you have a Cooper Kupp and you have a Puka Nacua and even a Demarcus Robinson, who like all of these players can play and operate well in the short to mid-range game for the Rams, you need a guy who again not isn't just sticky but is heady, who understands how to work out of those bunch formations, understands how to diagnose when things are happening in motion, and very rarely gets caught out of position. That's what makes Brian Branch kind of rise above again some of these other defensive players. Not saying that they're not important, but that's what kind of puts the onus on him because he's going to be in that prime position to impact two of the top receivers that the Rams have on their offense.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you, Miko. And he's probably kicking himself that he only has 3 picks. Like I know I've seen several in person, at home at Ford Field, where it looks like he's about to intercept come down with an interception, and then it just gets away from him, or the receiver gets a hand in there, and he's like hitting his head. But then I'm like, man, don't hit your head. I'm just happy you were in phase and you read that like green eggs and ham, and you were about to make an interception because I love that. Like if you're in position, like you said, if you do what you're supposed to, like that's the beauty of like secondary play. And I do love watching it and learning more about it like as the years go. But if you do what you're supposed to do, like zone coverage can work really well. Like there's a reason those Seattle Seahawk defenses under Pete Carroll, like the Legion of Boom days, they ran a ton of cover 3, right? They weren't manning dudes up. That's why people get on Richard Sherman. He's a Hall of Famer, but he wasn't like a Darrelle Revis where you just have him out there on an island. He's a cover 3 corner. But if you run cover 3 the way it's supposed to be run and you communicate, you pass people off and you talk, then that shit can be really hard to deal with. So, they're going to have to mix in zone. I do think they're going to play a significant amount of man against the Rams just because if you sit back there and you're not heating Stafford up and you're in zone, he's going to pick that shit apart. He's going to pick it apart because he's been doing it too long, and Nacua and Kupp are both really good against zone and finding the soft spots. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. It's got to be mixed up, but when they do go to zone, man, I wish they could like absorb some of Brian Branch's, defense, like his defensive IQ just for the game, just
translated to the rest of the defense.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
No, for sure. And I think piggybacking off of that, right? Specifically looking at what Matthew Stafford does well, and we talked about this even in our breakdown of the offense. It's not just, his accuracy and his arm strength, but it is how he manipulates defenses with his eyes. One of the best counters to that is you need to have players, going back to what you were saying about Brian Branch, you need players that know their responsibilities and aren't going to be, fooled by eye movement and things like that. Like he's going to be where he's supposed to be, and he's going to make a play on the ball the minute he sees a play coming his direction. So again, do I expect Brian Branch to completely shut down Puka Nacua? Do I expect him to completely shut down Cooper Kupp? No. But I do expect when he's targeted, I forgot to even mention Tyler Higbee, who was someone else that he may have to cover in this game, right? I don't expect Brian Branch to get burned badly in a lot of those situations. I don't expect him to be the weak link in coverage. I expect him to almost be one of the strongest ones. Honestly, between the nickels and the safeties, like I think that's where the Lions will be very strong in terms of coverage. We'll have to figure out. We'll have to see how things play out with the corners with Cam Sutton and Kendall Vildor. But Branch, Iffy, CJ, GJ, and Kirby in some form or fashion, I think those guys can have a really big game. But I think Brian Branch is like the tip of the spear when it comes to that level of a pass coverage and run defense, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, he's active in the run fits too. He gets down around the line of scrimmage and will lower the boom on some dudes. I love it. I love the way he plays. And for Higbee, my first thought immediately when I was watching their tape, I'm like, that's an Iffy matchup all day because Iffy's every bit of 6'3", 210, 215. So I like
And
that. I
dude's been
like that
playing
matchup.
lights. I was gonna say, dude's been playing lights out. He was like this close to being my X factor. This close to being my X factor because he's been great. But I think like I said, when it comes to matchups, I just think Brian Branch is going to be put in more matchups where he's going to have more opportunities to make plays, and I think he's going to make more than he loses. But honestly, like that's kind of our thought process when it comes down to X Factor. So I want to hear from you guys, or we want to hear from you guys in the comment section below, whether you're a Lions fan, whether you're a Rams fan. Where do you feel like the X factors need to lie in this game? When you look at the offense for the Lions, who's an X factor that needs to stand out? When you look at the defense, who's another X factor that needs to stand out? If you're a Rams fan commenting on this, who is somebody on the offense and defensive side that you are kind of like side eyeing a little bit, like, hey, the Rams need to take care of these players in order for them to have an easy time, come Sunday night. So let us know all that in the comment section below. Like I said earlier, if you haven't had a chance to check out any of the film studies that we did on the Rams offense and defense, both of those videos are on the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. You can also head over to prideofdetroit.com and check out all the latest articles that we've been putting out, talking about the playoffs, recent updates, any type of information that we've been getting about injuries or roster moves. All of that can be found on prideofdetroit.com. And last but not least, be sure to hit that subscribe button, subscribe to the Pride Detroit YouTube channel. That way you can be notified every time we upload a video, every time we go live, anytime we do anything over here on the Pride Detroit YouTube channel. But with all that said, I'm Meko, he's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.